Three, two, one. And welcome into This Life Matters. I am Andrew Morgan, your host, right alongside the co-host, the main host, the one you came to see. GG, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm great. Yeah. Hey, life is good. I had a shot in my knee today that I get every 6 months so I can keep doing everything I want to do. So,
Okay.
that's good.
A good shot. Everybody needs a good shot in the knee every now and again. I got a nice shot in the arm, you could say, when I went on vacation this past weekend. It was just a weekend vacation, but it was a vacation nonetheless. Got a chance to leave the country, and during an interesting time. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But yes, I celebrated 10 years of marriage, and 10 years is to a lot of people is not that long. I understand, but for us it's a pretty good accomplishment. Now, we've been together longer than 10 years,
Yeah.
but 10 years of official marriage. And so it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun to just look back over the past 10 years and see, the evolution, the growth, and just how things have just transitioned from one space to the next. It was pretty good. It's always good to just have these milestones where you can take a look back and see where you've come from. And for me, it personally makes me feel very hopeful about where we would be going in the next 10 years, because it's like, if we accomplish this many good things, this many great things over the course of 10 years, I cannot imagine, what 20 is going to look like or 40 is going to look like. So really exciting time for me and Regina here. And just excited about life in general. It's a time for us. It's a season of transition. So we are super excited about what's going to happen in the future with us as we're transitioning into some things that are going to be hard, and then some things that we're just excited about. We're going to become, as we've gotten a little bit older, we're now children with parents who are a little bit older. And so we have to help out more frequently and be involved in a little bit more than we were before. And we getting used to just the concept of, like, I've just had, like, for example, my mother-in-law's here now, so it's like just getting used to just having that extra family member around. It's an exciting transition. It's an exciting time. So, but today, GG, we have not had a show together in a little while. So we talked a little bit after Mother's Day. It was Father's Day and Juneteenth, also the same day of, like my anniversary is the same day of Juneteenth. But we also have Father's Day weekend. What all have you been up to over the past few weeks?
Well, I'm transitioning too. And speaking of transitions and evolving, and which is something I love. I love that. I like that word evolve, and I like to try to be doing that. And that's what you're doing. From the time I met you until now, there's been, over those 10 years, there's just been a lot of change for you. And doing different things. I mean, you've done so many different things, and you're actually a different person now, almost, than you were then. In fact, I was going to say one time, your vocabulary has changed too, as you have started doing different things, been exposed to different things, studied different things. You have changed the way that you language, the words that you use. And so that's an interesting thing. I don't know if you I don't think I've ever said that to you before, but that's what I've noticed. I am I'm transitioning as well. The next chapter for me is I am not going to be taking new counseling clients. I still have some counseling clients that I see, but I'm just not going to take new clients anymore. And I've gotten the certification as a healing touch practitioner, And that took a while to get to. And so my practice is moving more toward using that as my main modality to see clients, to help clients in their search for wholeness and wellness. And it has been added, actually, at the church we go to has been added to the pastoral care program, and which is exciting. So that's kind of where I'm going, and also getting ready for visitors here at the house for summer that we haven't been able to have since we were all on restriction. We got on, our parents put us on restriction, and we couldn't have visitors. We were grounded.
Yeah.
And so I've got one daughter and grandsons coming next week. And the big news, of course, in our family is that my daughter that lived overseas and her family last week moved back to the United States. And so permanently. And so they will be coming here the first couple of weeks of August. So I'm preparing my home for that, doing some different things. And I started playing golf again. I started playing golf when I was 6 years old, and that's a long, long, long time ago. And I hadn't played for a couple of years because I had this hip repair surgery. So I thought, okay, well, if I'm transitioning to do some other things, so I've added that back into my life. So those are kind of the things I've been doing.
Yeah. So, what's funny when it comes to this conversation about transition, I think, we're in the middle of the year, and I think this is a good time where a lot of people are making certain transitions because they've figured out certain things aren't working, and I do know that companies whose fiscal year ends in June and, going into July, they make decisions to transition you also, even if you didn't want to transition. So there are a lot of people who are dealing with those type of transitions, but also I think all of us, as you mentioned, the pandemic is definitely dealing with this concept of what does it mean? Like this, we're in the ugly phase of transition from being under pandemic, restrictions to re-experiencing, the freedoms of just like going as you are. And so it can be a little bit scary. It can be a little bit frustrating when you go into the grocery store and, you see one person in the grocery store with no mask on whatsoever, and then another, and everyone else mask up, and is mixed messages you get. I was in Walmart and I heard, the thing go off and says, the little announcement goes off and it says, you must wear a mask, according to CDC standards. But then later it says, unless fully vaccinated. And it's like, oh my God, so there's no conviction, for anyone who's walking around maskless. They're finally like, hey, this is what we can do because, and no one's going to ever say like, hey, no one's going to test them and say, show me your vaccine card. No one's going to say that. You don't have to get carded to go
Right.
in. And
Right.
nor do I'm not an advocate for, I'm not saying you should card people or whatnot, but it almost feels like you should, just because you wonder how many people are walking around maskless and putting themselves at risk. As a person who's vaccinated, it is what it is. I'm still going to choose to wear my mask just because there are vulnerable people that I feel like I don't know whether I'm going to be around vulnerable people later, and I don't want to take a chance of passing anything to them. But just some people just never believed that there was a risk to take. And there's just a lot of people who live that particular way. And that's the ugly part of the transition. Is just like, one, for me, is just like minding my own business and not letting that upset me, giving people space and, not even like letting them live rent free in my head. I'm not going to let people, come into my space and just kill my joy. I could be at the grocery store having a good time, and just because some guy comes around the corner, without a mask on, or I'm not gonna bother with it. I'm good. But that is the ugly part of the is I'm experiencing parts of the transition. I haven't experienced it on the vacation a lot. as soon as we got to the resort, people were like maskless. And everywhere we went, you know, like it seemed like everyone there that was working had a mask on at all times. But all of the guests, even walking around, you know, the part of the island we were on, most of the guests did not have a mask on at all. You know, we kept one with us. And I'm not gonna lie, it was like, you know, when you're down in the water, I'm not putting on a mask in the water.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, you haven't told our viewers, I don't think, where you were.
oh, I went to Aruba. I'm sorry. Yeah, you know, um, it was one of the best experiences. You know, me and you have talked frequently down through the years about my trip to Haiti, and it reminded me a little bit of that because it was another one of those times where I got a chance to be in a country that's predominantly where you see a lot of Black and brown people. In this case, you know, like just, you know, running the show, doing different things, and I know their language there, you know, varies between, you know, and their money and everything is American, Dutch, and Spanish. But it's still always good to just see actual like diversity. So to the point, you don't call it diversity. It's just their land. It's just who they are. They're there. And it was a refreshing necessity to be there. It was weird to do it during this time of transition, you know, being on the plane. A jam-packed plane is still kind of, but you know, it is what it is. You know, but for the most part, yeah, it was great. That's how we celebrated our 10 years of marriage and everything. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I like to have those kind of things to look forward to, and so looking forward to people coming here this summer and things that I've planned. I always have something on the calendar, and I find that very helpful for me to do that. Um, but you know, you talk about these. We're talking about the transitions, and sometimes people, you know, get very anxious about transitions. And I don't, I like change, but so that doesn't bother me. But the hesitancy, not quite anxiety I have, is what you're talking about that you experienced on the trip. And, you know, and we live in different states. I'm in Oklahoma, you're in basically Washington,
Oregon. Yeah.
Oregon. And I'm not up on the exact percentage of people that have been vaccinated where you are. I know that we were pretty high, and now we're in the bottom. And so, but here, everything is opened. There's not any place, unless it's a doctor's office or a hospital, maybe, that is absolutely no exceptions. You're going to wear a mask. And so there's really nobody wearing a mask here where I am. And so it's hard to know. It's hard for me to know I'm fully vaccinated, but it's hard to know if somebody's not wearing a mask, are they not vaccinated either? And that's the case in a lot of cases. That is the case, because I know that we have a low rate of being vaccinated. So they're, you know, it makes sense. And so that does cause people, it causes me some anxiety in a way. And so I have to deal with that. And we don't know how to deal completely with that yet.
Yeah. You mentioned something, and I might be hopping subjects a little bit, but you mentioned something that I really want us to kind of talk about. This very important is this idea of having something to look forward to. You know, like even now during this time of transition, what I'm looking forward to is the transition being over. Not so much so that I want to skip steps, but I am looking forward to the day where it's like, this is no longer a debate, that people just get it. Now, I understand it might be years or whatever it might, you know, it may take a while, but I look forward to that day. More specifically, you know, when I look back over the past, you know, 10 years of just kind of like gauging, like you had mentioned earlier, like the growth that I've had as an individual and my family has seen, I went from never had been on vacation before in my life. And over the past 10 years, I've been able to go multiple times throughout, some bigger trips, some smaller trips, but, and then I've been able to just travel the country also, for work, with, producing podcasts and doing other things. So but those all gave me things to look forward to. And in the pandemic, it was hard because it was like I had several trips that I was really looking forward to. And I was lucky that in September of 2020, I was able to go drive around the country to do the voter registration, campaign. But outside of that, it was a lot of just like, I am really looking forward to traveling. I'm really looking forward to doing something, seeing something different. That's something to look forward to is very important to all of us. I don't know what it does, like from a clinical standpoint or whatever it is, but it's nothing like, using that motivation to get you through some of the days that you really just cannot. With the day, there are days where it feels impossible. And on those days, you know, the thing that kind of gets me over the finish line is sometimes what I'm looking forward to. And I know that those can come in many different, forms. Like I said, I'm at a point in my life now where the past month or so has been one of the hardest months of my life, hands down. The only thing that got me over the hump 100% was knowing that I had Aruba coming. I knew it. So this past month was not as bad as it could have been because like that high functioning level of depression that I was experiencing, the only way that I was able to squeak out and have a little bit of focus sometimes it was just focusing in on the positive thing that's coming. Even when I couldn't really focus on the thing that was in front of me at that moment because of what it was causing, I found myself having something positive to look forward to. And I understand not everyone gets a chance to do that. But even if it's not as big as Aruba, for me, I was also trying to find other little positives to look forward to. So coming back off of that big trip, I was like, well, what's the next thing to look forward to? Because I could not face the idea that there's nothing else, you know? And one of the things I got excited about was that some of the transitions that I'm making will be over with in a few weeks. I'll be in, certain relationships and situations. The other thing I had a lot to look forward to is my 40th birthday is coming. That's August. My sons both have birthdays, and my daughter has a birthday before me. So I'm picking little bitty little things just to say, okay, something good's coming. Just be still and be patient and stay focused on what's good and what's positive. And try not to focus on all of the negative things. Sure, the negative things will need my attention so that I can address them, and deal with them, but they don't have to be my center focus.
I think that the feeling that we get by having something to look forward to and creating it, we don't have to wait for something to come up. We can create the thing to look forward to. So the birthdays, yes, I look forward to those too. But I also have to create something to look forward to, whether it's just little things. It can be little things that we look forward to. So I was thinking as you were talking, something came up for me. And what came up for me is the word hope. I think that same feeling that we get when we have hope is the same kind of feeling we get when we are looking forward to something. And to me, it feels hopeful, and looking forward feels the same, close to the same. What do you think about that? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it does. I think that without hope, it just there is no life existence, like without at least a glimmer to some extent. And I don't want to go veer too far from what you were saying, but like hope is really a wellspring for me. Like it's one of the things where it's like, okay, as long as there's some hope in a situation, I know that there's a possibility that I'll get through it. Um, but for the most part, it's a bigger like I know it's a much bigger conversation to have around it. But like for me, just simply just putting it real simple, like I come back to like that biblical value of faith, hope, and love, just like always kind of keeping those things at the centerpiece. But without hope, it kind of like tears down the foundation of any type of uh, it's important, especially for me, because I've had hope inserted into my life, my entire life. Like my community has always gave me something to hope for. I've always been taught that there is a more hopeful, there's a brighter future. I've always been told and affirmed that I help people refocus in on a brighter hope. And so knowing that I feel like hope is a part of my life, and it's not this distant thing. It's not like or it's not selective for anyone. I feel like all of us have something to be hopeful for. I don't know. At this point, I feel like I'm just rambling. You wouldn't pick you back up.
There's something about hope that is, we lose hope sometimes in certain situations. One of the situations that there are a lot of people that are coming out of and are still battling is the fact that we've lost over 600,000 people in the United States to COVID. And when you're grieving, when you've lost a loved one, and it's like that hope doesn't make sense anymore. And so there's always the grief, but then there's the time of mourning. Mourning is the activity of grieving, and people mourn in different ways. And once that process works through for a person, then they can start to have the glimmer of hope again. And I think that's one reason that it's so important. That's the reason it was important to me. When my son died, I couldn't have cared whether I woke up the next morning, frankly. I mean, that thought came to my head. And well, it doesn't really matter if I don't wake up. And I think that some people don't know that that is a normal thought when you've lost someone very important to you. That doesn't mean you're depressed. It doesn't mean you're suicidal. It's just that all of a sudden you think, well, it doesn't really matter anymore. It would be okay if I didn't wake up. But as we move through a grief process, however we do that, however short or long that is, one of the signs that we're actually making progress and moving through is because we start to develop that sense of hope again in some way. So that's where I came up with knowing that I needed to have something on the calendar to look forward to. First it was a wedding, then it was another wedding, then it was a grandchild, then it was another wedding and a grandchild, and then it was another grandchild. So those are the major points that I can look at and say, I needed that to move forward. And as those things happened, I felt myself experiencing joy again. And so that's where I personally came up with that thought about needing something to look forward to. And I still do that. I don't do it because I have to. I do it because I really like it. I like the feeling of it. I love it. And I won't ever stop that. So I'm always going to have something to look forward to. So I would say to our listeners, if you're going through something that you're very sad and you're depressed, you're despondent, you're grieving, you're mourning, just even some little something that you can look forward to can help you move through the process of mourning and of grief and of sadness. And that's my word, Andrew.
I, That's beautiful. I think there's nothing really I could add to that. You know, I love the factor that you said it's not that you have to, which is sometimes the pressure that some of us feel when we don't have an evolved thought about something. Like when you say, well, what are you looking forward to? And sometimes your problems can be so in your face that you really can feel almost shame that you don't have anything to look forward to. Um, and part of that shame is that you feel like, well, I have to have something, right? And I love the fact that you're like, no, I just love to have something to look forward to. Like, I don't need it. It has come in handy, but it is something that is like, yeah, like this is just the bonuses of life. Like, this is the things that make life better. And that's the thing I love about when we just have conversations, opposed to like, some of our former shows, we were trying to inform more and educate more. And this is just the reality of who we are and where we are in our lives at this very point, is just the realness of just being able to just be like, hey, you know what? One of the best things that helps is to have something to look forward to. That's GG's advice, and that's mine too. Like, but I also understand and know and remember quite well what it was like, 11, 12 years ago, where hope was very thin. I've always had hope instilled in me, but even with people telling me, and even with me knowing I had something to hope for, and even looking at my children, I still had moments, quiet moments, where hopelessness took over. And I think it's important for me to always share that too, just to let people know that that hope, that sense, that feeling of hopelessness even came to me, has even come to me in my pastoral role. And to be honest with you, I don't think I'd ever felt as hopeless until I did become a traditional pastor. Because as you know, I pastored for years, in outreach and what people wouldn't call a traditional pastor, but nonetheless, I know what I was. You know what I'm saying? But once I became okay, this is a church I'm in charge of type pastor. I'm going to preach on Sundays. That was one of the first times one of the first times I can ever say that I felt sincerely just like without hope, and it came and it went, I'm not saying that it lasted. I'm just saying, but that's just me being transparent of saying, even in those coveted positions that people hold, people feel hopeless. There have been people sitting in the White House feeling hopeless. There's been people in a lot of different situations that, we see it every single day when we pass people under those intersections and those underpasses, and we see people sleeping under there. There's a level of them waking up every single day and being almost disappointed that they did, because of the sense of hopelessness greets them right away. And that's one of the reasons why in this world we have to always continuously be friends to people, to be relational before transactional. People need love. We need love. We need love, because with that love is always associated with a little bit of hope. When you have these transactional relationships with people like, hey, I'm just here to give you some water. I'm just here to pray for you. I'm just here to give you this sandwich. Yeah, that can inspire something, but it's a totally different thing when someone says, hey, I want to know your name. I want to know who you are. I want to be your friend. I want to show you that your worth means someone else more than just, this transaction. So moving into spaces of loving and caring for people, um, people like the actual person, their whole selves, as I would say, and you see the shirts that I design and always wear, treating them as though they're whole 5/5 human. It's what gives them hope. That's kind of what we're seeing in America right now. We're seeing a group of people who felt hopeless under the thumb of oppression and systematic racism. And that's why they march and hit the streets and say and have to yell that their lives matter. This is why people are rebelling against these systems, because they're tired of feeling hopeless and they're trying to snatch back something. So that's all I really have to say, about this, because there's so much transitioning going on. How we cope and deal with the transition, whether it's pandemic, whether it's about, you've been comfortable with the systems that exist, no matter what it is, life is changing. It's evolving. That's our key word for today. It's evolving. And you got to get with the show because it's going to be all right. Things are going to keep moving in a positive direction with or without you. You might as
That
well.
is so true. That is so true. And we have a choice on what we do. And I think about that all the time. I mean, we have a choice on what we wear. We have a choice on what we eat. We have a choice on lots of times where we live. Sometimes we have a choice on at some point we have a choice on what we do for a living or a job that we take. I mean, we have multiple choices where we go, where we shop. I mean, some people don't have as much choice in that. Some people have a lot of choice, but ultimately, we do have a choice where our feet lead us. And with that, sometimes there is a lot of disappointment. And that's what I heard from you, Andrew, is when you were talking at first about the hopelessness that you felt at some point after you became a pastor was, I think what you were maybe expressing or what I got from it was that there was this deep disappointment. And then that led to a hopeless kind of situation or a hopeless feeling that you have. And I think that's true in most situations. When we become disappointed, then we get, and we keep being disappointed, and we either have to change our expectation so we're not disappointed, or we have to leave the situation, or we get sick. Those are those choices that we make. And so if we're in a situation where we're constantly disappointed and we're not going to be able to change our expectation, then we either get sick or we have to leave. That's basically the choice that we have. So, and that's what you're doing. And that's what I've done in the past. I mean, we all do that. So anyway, for today, that's what's been on our minds today, apparently. Transitions, evolving, hope, looking forward, and hopefully moving forward. So, I'm going to say my thing first this time.
Oh, okay. See, that's a transition. That's new. Go for it.
Okay. Life begins to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Martin Luther King.
All right. And also, I like to take a little bit from MLK with Hate Can't Drive Out Hate. Only love can do that. We love you for listening, and we thank you so much for listening and watching This Life Matters. My name is Andrew Morgan, and that is GG. And GG, what do we always like to say?
We will see you next week on This Life Matters.